Bismillah. A brother asked about the Hadith in Muslim that talks about the three individuals that will be from the first people to be entered into the hellfire, and specifically he discusses ask about the man who sought knowledge, and then Allah questions him about it, and he says that Allah tells him that you sought this knowledge to be praised by the people.
How this is relevant to me saying that we should not praise people? How is this relevant to?
Because Allah, from what the brother seems to point out, is that this man was seeking knowledge for other than the sake of Allah, and he wanted the people to call him an alim.
Okay, so that's mean. Okay, so that is clearly shows that if a person seeks knowledge, he deserves to be called alim.
That's what it seems the question asks.
Bismillah, yes. These three people. First, we start with the hadith. The hadith is a Muslim, and this is the narration of Yunus bin Yusuf. Well, there is some talk about this man, and some people actually, even though this hadith is in Muslim, some people spoke about this hadith, said that this hadith is not strong. Some muhaddithin. So, however, that is not. We should not. It doesn't matter really. This hadith is not in ahkam. I am not going to say Rasulullah said or Allah said. I'm just going to say that this hadith or similar hadith, there is so many hadith actually, that we hear the Prophet saying, ulama, for example, the Prophet saying about إن الله لا يقبض العلم انتزاعا بعد إذا أعطاكموه. Allah will not take the ilm after He gave it to you. He will not take away the ilm. He will take ilm, knowledge, by taking the ulama. This is hadith which is a Muslim, hadith Bukhari and Muslim. There is the hadith about Bani Israel, the rahib and the alim, the man who killed 99, and then he went to a monk. He asked him, and then he told him to. He asked him a question. He told him, "Do you have no tawbah?" So the monk, he killed the monk as the 100th person, and then he went to a alim. But the Prophet has the right to call ulama. He has the right to call this person alim, because the Prophet, through the wahy, he knows that this person was a alim, who was someone who has knowledge and fears Allah. When when the Prophet says that اتخذ الناس رؤوس جهالا, when the knowledge is taken by the ulama, being taken away, and people will take the ignorant as their leaders. Also, here he is talking about it generally, about people who will Allah will take the ulama, those who have knowledge and fear Allah. Because if what remains on earth are people who have knowledge but they don't fear Allah, it's a problem. That is not a praiseworthy state. That the Prophet will not want that. This is not what the Prophet was mourning. If we have people who don't have knowledge and they are the leaders, but they fear Allah, but they don't have that much knowledge, it's still fine if they fear Allah. If we have people who fear Allah, but they don't have that much knowledge, you don't have problem if you go and ask them, because since they fear Allah, they will direct you to someone who has knowledge. So that is not. As for this hadith that Allah says you have been doing this to be called alim, that doesn't say that you have to calling a person alim is right. Just if we take the rest of the hadith, that the other person is someone who fought for the sake of Allah, and Allah says that you were fighting, so people will say that you are a courageous person. That doesn't say you don't take from that hadith that it is an obligation on people to call every person who is fighting for the sake of Allah a courageous person, or every person who is spending his money for the sake of Allah to call him the generous person. or even mustahab. We don't even say that it's a good thing to do. So the question that brothers asked, you should just have looked at the hadith, and this is what always I advise the brothers. Before you ask a question, just think properly about the hadith. You might get the answer yourself.
Okay. The brother goes and asks another question. It's an ayat in the Quran. I'll say the interpretation. It says, Allah says, refer to Ahl al-Dhikr if you do not know.
فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. The answer is there. You said it. If you don't know, ask people of dhikr if you don't know. So if you know, you don't have to ask Ahl al-Dhikr. And who is Ahl al-Dhikr? Al-Dhikr is the Quran and Sunnah. And dhikr also is the Torah and the Injil. The dhikr is every book that Allah has sent. And in this ayah, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, is nothing, there is nothing against what I have been talking about earlier or in the previous lesson. So we say you have to ask Ahl al-Dhikr if you don't know. But who are Ahl al-Dhikr? Every Muslim who has dhikr. If a person has no dhikr, if you go to a person and ask him a question, let's say this person has studied all his life, and he knows a lot, he memorized so many books, he memorized the Quran, but the matter you are asking him about, you know that he doesn't know it. You know for sure he doesn't know this matter. Are you going to tell me that I am going to ask this person? No. We have some Sahaba, as I said before, that learned a lot of things. The hadith, take example for the hadith of the aqiqah. Describe how to the haqiqah, slaughtering of the aqiqah, is narrated by a Sahabi who is not well known. He didn't narrate that many hadith. It's not narrated by Ibn Abbas through any Sahih Isnad. And Ibn Abbas know a lot. If I know to ask about aqiqah, I go to that person, or I go to Ibn Abbas. You understand? So, of course, everybody who knows what he says, he will say, you have to go to this Sahabi, Sulaiman bin Surad, because he is Ahl al-Dhikr in this matter. So a person is Ahl al-Dhikr. Either we take all Muslims Ahl al-Dhikr, the way the hadith say, there is a hadith which is not really strong, that say, Awtiru Ahl al-Quran. Do witr, O people of Quran. Now, many people consider this hadith to be sahih. Now, is it people who memorize Quran only who are going to do witr? Al-Quran is like Ahl al-Dhikr. They say, actually, they use this hadith to say everybody should do it, at least as mustahab, or some consider it to be wajib, like the Ahnaf, by using this hadith. So, Ahl al-Dhikr is the people who have, generally, everybody is Ahl al-Dhikr. But since we can't ask everybody, or every Muslim, so here it means that you go to the person that you know that the matter that you are seeking to know, he has knowledge of it from dhikr, not from the saying of this imam or this sahabi or the opinion of this person or that alim or that jahid. No, is Ahl al-Dhikr. When you ask him the question, he will say, Allah said, or the Prophet said. This is the dhikr that we know, what Allah said and what the Prophet said. You understand? It's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Those who harm or hurt Allah and His Prophet. لُعِنُوا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. They are cursed in the dunya and the akhirah. If someone uses this ayah, like some groups use it, and say, look, Aisha has been hurting the Prophet. I mean, the Prophet used to get angry with Aisha sometimes. What answer for that? Did Aisha hurt the Prophet? Never. She had problems. She caused some problems to her husband, not to the Prophet. Because when we say the Prophet here, it's like because he is the Prophet. Abu Jahl was hurting the Prophet because he is the Prophet, not because he was Muhammad bin Abdullah. He had no problem with his cousin as Muhammad bin Abdullah. He had problem with him as the Prophet. Aisha had no problem with him as Prophet at all. She would not speak with him for a few days, but she is still praying and believe in him and believe in everything that he came with. That is Aisha not having problem with Rasulullah, not hurting the Prophet. Also, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ, this is the meaning of أهل الذِّكْر, the people who have dhikr. If you go to someone and tells you, and you know that he will tell you what Ibn Abbas said, or what Abu Salama ibn Abd al-Rahman have said, or what Abu Hanifa have said, or what Ibn Hazm has said, or what Ibn Taymiyyah has said, or these people today, so-called ulama, have said, but he will not explain to you why they said it, from where they got it, you are not allowed to go to this person. You go to Ahl al-Dhikr. Everything they say, قال الله, قال رسول.